Well, I am again honored to have a former Minnesota governor, movie star, top wrestler, best-selling author, XFL and NFL commentator, and so much more, Governor Jesse Ventura, with us until the bottom of the hour. Lord Christopher Monckton joining us coming up 52 minutes from now from the Copenhagen Global Government Summit. But I wanted to get the governor on, and luckily I caught him because this is his last interview. He is leaving in the next 24 hours to Mexico for a few months of surfing. And so we are certainly honored to have him on with us. Governor Ventura, good to have you here.
Good morning, Alex.
So this is your swan song before you escape to Mexico.
Hopefully. Actually, I'm not leaving within the next 24, but I would tell you it will be within the next week.
Oh, okay, because I talked to your wife, and she thought you were leaving.
Well,
but I
don't know. Maybe she's going to pack me up, and we'll be out of here tonight. I don't know.
Well, that was last Friday.
They're usually in charge.
Boy, I tell you have been busy. Well, congratulations on the television show being the highest-rated news show in TruTv history. Massive viewership.
Well, it did well, considering all the options out there, Alex, and that there's, literally hundreds of stations that a viewer has to choose from. They couldn't be happier. I couldn't be happier, and I want to thank your listeners in that because they're certainly a part of it now. The key now is to keep the momentum rolling, and hopefully the show will grow. Hopefully word of mouth will get out there, and there is a buzz, believe it or not, and hopefully the show will continue to grow in viewership, and that way it'll pretty much force their hand. They'll have to renew for more, and then we can continue our investigations and continue enlightening the public and asking the questions. Can we get definitive answers? Not always, because naturally we can't put anyone under oath and threaten them with perjury or subpoena anybody, but we certainly can pose the question and continue to question authority, which is good, in my opinion, and hopefully get more people involved in the process and wake the lemmings up a little bit.
So did you lose the bet? You betted that the show wouldn't air with your crew, or your crew bet
I happily lost the bet. It was a gentleman's bet, so of course there was nothing involved, no material or monetary involvement. But I happily lost the bet. I never thought that I thought at the 11th hour someone would come in and pull the plug on this project. They have not. The first one aired, of course, on H.A.A.R.P last week. Tomorrow night should be on the infamous 9/11. And, again, I defend myself by saying this. I went out and spoke to three different people who were all at the site when it happened, and within that day, the other gentleman spent 256 consecutive days there working. And all of these interviews I do with these people tell a far different story than what the government told us. Now, you then ask yourself the question, who do you want to believe? Do you want to believe the government bureaucracy and the bureaucrats in Washington that weren't there? Or do you want to believe three people who were hands-on, two of them surviving the attack, and the other one starting that very day to spend 256 consecutive days at the site? Who do you want to believe? Well, I'll unequivocally state that I believe the people I talk to.
Well, for those that don't...
And I don't want to tip the show off completely, so that's why I'm kind of talking in generalities and not naming names. Sure.
Well, I have got a large idea of, I know the inside baseball, and I think people are going to be amazed when they see this tomorrow night. A lot of people couldn't believe this would go on mainstream television. They couldn't believe that you would go on and do the H.A.A.R.P special, and that it would be basically all from our perspective or point of view, because the other side was so secretive and, covered up what was really going on. People are really amazed. This is a watershed event to have the pro-conspiracy view shown. But as you said, you just went out and searched for the truth, and you've shared with me your view on what you think the most powerful episode of the 7 episodes is. Do you want to tell folks that here on air?
Well, I'll tell you this, the scariest of the 7 episodes, in my opinion, is 2012. And I'll leave it at that. That's the scariest one. The most bizarre one, in my opinion, and again, this is just my opinion, is the Manchurian Candidate episode. Alex, throwing everything aside, the shows are going to be very entertaining. They're going to be informative. And if people even choose not to believe them, they certainly will be frightened by the shows, because if they are true, it is frightening.
Well, and I've talked.
That's what the great thing was about doing these shows. And again, I'm amazed that they're on the air, but, maybe they just think that I don't have the credibility anymore. Maybe they just think that it'll be meaningless. But the other reason I'm glad they're on the air is 100 years from now, I hope that people, when they look back and study about now, will realize that not all of us believed what the government said on things. Not all of us were of the same opinion as the official story. And I think that's very important, because to every story there's going to be multiple sides to it. And those multiple sides need to be heard. And fortunately now we've got it on the record. If these 7 shows air, there will at least be some type of something on the record, pretty predominantly, that indicates that not everybody believed the status quo.
Well, just to be clear, I have had a chance to discover what is contained in tomorrow night's 9/11 show, and this is the one episode that I personally thought would probably not air, and it still hasn't aired. We'll see what obviously transpires tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. But clearly, I know a lot of people in the production crew, and I know talking to you and others, I mean, the 9/11 show, I think, is the strongest and is extremely groundbreaking and powerful. The information that is going to be aired for the first time in a fair way on national television.
Well, I've seen it, and I stand by everything we did on it. I'm proud of the fact that we did it. I'm of the believer that dissension's the greatest form of patriotism. I say that as often as I can, because I'm a sucker for honesty, and I'm a sucker for the truth, and I try to turn over everything I can to learn it when I think that there's something suspicious. And bottom line for me, Alex, is this. We're a country that runs by the rule of law, or at least we're supposed to. And if you follow that rule of law, you have to follow it when it's convenient as well as when it's inconvenient. And I question the fact that how can we convict someone before we've even indicted them? It runs contrary to everything this country stands for, and yet people are accepting this. And what I'm saying is, Osama bin Laden, why has he never been indicted for 9/11? Why haven't the government convened a grand jury, presented evidence enough to the grand jury, which is us citizens, for us to bring down an indictment? It happened 8 years ago. Why hasn't that procedure been followed in our rule of law?
Well,
like the other day, I was watching these hearings where that Senator Graham was grilling Holder, the Attorney General, and he asked Holder, he said, if hypothetically you caught bin Laden tomorrow, would you read him Miranda? And here the Attorney General hems and haws. I would have looked at that senator and said, absolutely you read him Miranda. It's the rule of the land. It's our laws. You can't just ignore the law because you choose to. And then I would have looked at that Senator Graham and said, well, Senator, is it you who decides who Miranda gets read to? Come on. That's the rule of our land.
Well, Governor Ventura.
Charles Manson got Miranda read to him, Alex.
Absolutely. Well, you've also made the point in national television interviews that 6 of the 10 commissioners say the 9/11 investigation was a fraud, a cover-up. Farmer, the head lawyer, has got a book coming out saying it was all a criminal cover-up, that the Pentagon was lying, that they agreed day one to lie to the public. I mean, you've got to have your head screwed on backwards to not call for a true independent investigation and to have the media call us kooks for simply listening to what the 9/11 Commission is saying. That's a fraud. And then we have Khalid Sheikh Mohammed held for 8 years. They threatened to torture his kids. He confessed to everything but killing Kennedy and Lincoln. He confessed to bombing buildings that weren't built till 3 years after he was already arrested.
Well, Alex, I don't know about that. I'm not that deep into that knowledge, but I'll take your word on it. Exactly. And you start looking at this evidence and analyzing it, and it just doesn't add up.